Back in the early 2010s, back when MTV wasn't just an infinite rerun of retarded shit like ridiculousness. Guys, did you see viral video? No. And back when you didn't get your balls broken on the wheel for calling retarded shit retarded, MTV had a lot of cool stuff going on, including original non-reality shows, such as Awkward. The show centers around Jenna Hamilton, an awkward teenager. Your teen years are some of the most awkward ones, and everyone has at least 10 stories that make their toes curl up. But have you ever had a summer hookup, only to be ignored by said hookup at school, receive an anonymous letter listing everything wrong about you, and to top that, slipping in the bathroom when you were about to take some medication, falling and spilling the pills everywhere, not only breaking your arm in the process, but making it look like a suicide attempt, giving you the reputation of being suicidal at school. Oh, and the cast on your arm leaves it in a permanent high five pose. And that's just the first episode, we still got 5 whole seasons. Honestly, even this is keeping it light when it comes to high school experiences, and that really says something about high school. So what happens in Awkward? Well, as previously mentioned, our protagonist is Jenna Hamilton, an awkward, yeah you know what I mean, 15-year-old in high school who has just been to summer camp where she hooked up with probably the school's most handsome boy, Maddie McKibben, in a locker room. And then immediately being told by him that it has to be a secret between them. And being a teen in the early 2010s, you know she has to put that shit on her anonymous blog. Like many teen dramas, Awkward is narrated by its protagonist. In other works, it's the protagonist's diary being read aloud, while in Awkward it's Jenna's online blog. It always helps that there is a source for the narration instead of it just being the character's inner voice talking to the audience. Like in Dracula, where it all comes from their personal diaries, because they are all dramatic, sickly Victorian children. Summer is over and Jenna is getting ready to go back to her high school. In California. Yeah, it's over. Jenna's mom, Lacey, is still not over her own high school years, because she got knocked up by Jenna's dad and had to drop it all to take care of Jenna. And because of this, she projects a lot onto Jenna and tries to live the life she never had through her. Her dad's name is Kevin, but he isn't as important. He's just there so the writers don't have to write yet another teenage girl without a father figure. He is funny though, despite looking like a stock photo. But yeah, not terribly important. Unlike this letter Jenna is about to receive. It's essentially a hit piece informing Jenna of everything wrong with her and what she must do to fix her own situation. The first being, stop being such a pussy. This and the recent rejection by Maddie, and the fact that she is a bit of a pussy, makes Jenna quite distraught and leaves her with only one option, suicide. Nah, she just wants to take some aspirin, but somehow she fumbles that too, just like Maddie, and chokes on them, slips, falls and spills the pills everywhere, making it look like a suicide attempt. Awkward. She breaks her arm and her reputation at school because word comes out fast, and her only source of comfort at school is her 2 friends. Tamara, sometimes called T, who shortens everything to stuff like OMG, IDGAF, IGTFKM, etc., and who looks and acts like she's actually enjoying the experience of life, unlike Jenna, who doesn't look like she's suicidal, just that she's open to the idea, and who has the 1000 bad bitches fumbled stare. And then there's Ming, an actual bad bitch, who they sometimes call the Ming Dynasty, because racism is funny. Which it is. Tamara and Ming inhabit opposite ends of the 2000s best friend look, while Jenna inhabits the 2000s loser protagonist look. Awkward is a series that checks all the boxes. Tamara and Ming are Jenna's only friends because, of course, she's a social outcast. How original. And it's not that she's terribly weird, she's just awkward. And she only has one bully, Sadie Saxton, not related to Saxton Hale unfortunately. Ming may be a bad bitch, but Sadie is a bad bitch. Because she's mean. To Jenna. But also everybody else, including her bimbo Christian friend, Lissa, who is like Jesus on the cross, if the cross was bimbofication and the Romans torturing her were all named Sadie. While Jenna's situation isn't exactly comparable to Jesus on the cross, she is quite cross, having everyone think she tried to off herself, so she gets assigned a student counselor named Valerie Marks, a walking category 5 white woman moment, and an actually good representation of the kind of people employed at high schools. Inappropriate, invasive, clingy, pretty funny, intentionally and unintentionally, and she's kinda good at her job, I guess. Anyhow, she wants to help Jenna out, whether Jenna wants it or not. She doesn't. Valerie is a character that could easily have been too much or too little, but the writers really nailed it, and so did the actress playing her, Daisy Lydic. And that's what Awkward does so well. They have an extensive and colorful cast, and they all stand out from each other and elevate the show, from the main cast to the ones that only appear in a few episodes. They never drag or overstay their welcome, and they each achieve their goal to the audience. Jenna is incredibly awkward, and unfortunately incredibly relatable. Every day she wakes up and chooses to fumble the bag. And I respect it. I'm actually something of a retard myself. Yet, she's also one of the few characters that has legs to stand on, when she's not tripping over herself in basic social interaction, which might also be because she can't tie her shoelaces because she somehow broke her arm taking fucking medication. In a series populated by such expressive characters, it's nice to have a protagonist who is so mellow. She is a bit of a stand-in for the audience, giving her live Jenna reaction to the tomfoolery of the rest of the cast. No, really, she has a vast range of bewildered expressions, and I've built up a collection. The costume and character design for Jenna also perfectly encapsulates her character. Big hoodies, minimum makeup, in contrast to the rest of the school. She doesn't look confident, but she's comfortably herself, and that's being and looking awkward and constantly hitting the autistic stare at the shenanigans that is her life. And you have to hand it to the actress portraying her, Ashley Rickards, because I can't think of many who has captured the awkward essence of being a teenager like she does. There's a lot of similar shows and movies to Awkward out there, but few of them has a protagonist that actually acts and thinks like a teenager, and not just an immature adult, and that's across the board for the cast. Characters are a blend of classic archetypes and real, unique characteristics, and some are just walking punchlines, but that's the minor characters, as God intended. Some of the best ones are Jenna's friends Tamara and Ming, whose more unhinged nature perfectly complements Jenna's nature. Maddie, whose relationship with Jenna is the groundwork for the entire show, and his friend Jake and their great not too straight, not too gay dynamic. Sadie and her bimbo best friend Lisa, Valerie and Jenna's parents, though mainly her mom, and so many more, big and small. All of the main cast have a consistent sparring partner that highlights the best and worst of both characters, and creates funny and memorable interactions. Which is ultimately what makes the show so great, because we all know what happens in high school, and there isn't a whole lot you can do to change it up, besides having a great cast, like Awkward. The show is silly for the most part, but it knows when to log in and get real. Unlike You. In terms of plot, the show really doesn't stand out from other high school dramedies. There's a ton of on and off romances, love octagons, and the show follows the classic high school formula, where you go along with the characters through their education and the events that follow, like prom, exams, school trips and graduation, and see how they all react and interact. Where Awkward stands out is in its excellent execution and making it all feel fresh while also maintaining that feeling of nostalgia. The plot is a bit repetitive, and because of that, I'm not really spoiling anything by saying this. It goes something like this. Jenna and Maddie get together. Something happens. Jenna and Maddie are no longer together. Jenna and Maddie are mad and sad. Jenna and Maddie reconcile. Jenna or Maddie get together with someone else. Drama arises. Jenna or Maddie leaves their partner. Jenna and Maddie make up. Jenna and Maddie get together. Something happens. Jenna and Maddie are no longer together. A lot of stuff happens in between all of that, but in the grand scheme of things, this is the plot. And I fucking love it. It's tastefully tacky, which is crazy because that's my favorite flavor of tacky. Awkward ran from 2011 to 2016 and consists of 5 seasons, which shows the quality of seasons often differ. So how does Awkward's rank between each other? The first one is the one that put the show on the map, and the first episode might be the best episode of the entire show. The way it perfectly introduced the characters, set the tone, and contained some of the most memorable and iconic moments of the entire series. Like Jenna with her cast, the letter subplot, etc. The second and third season don't differ a lot from each other or the first in terms of quality, and essentially just keep the ball rolling with some improvements here and there, but they are highly enjoyable regardless. Don't fix what's not broken. Now, the fourth season really upped the production and shook things up without losing Awkward's core feel and identity. So much happens in this one that it feels like 2 separate seasons were put together. and it's one that feels truly distinct and like an evolution from the previous seasons. There are so many new characters and conflicts, lots of changes in scenery, and the overall production quality is so much better. It keeps you guessing, and along with the first season, it's one of my favorites. But there is one thing that it does that I will never forgive. It got rid of Ming in the most uneventful way possible. She doesn't even get a proper send-off. They just say she went to a boarding school in Vermont. The writers couldn't even send her to a real place. Now, it's said that Ming's actor, Jessica Liu, wanted to, quote-unquote, move on. But more concrete reasons aren't known. Ming is part of the main cast, but a lot of the time she feels more like a side character in comparison to the others. And she doesn't receive nearly the same attention as, say, Tamara. Even though she is in so many scenes, she's not as deep. She does receive more attention later on and even gets her own subplot, yet she still feels almost left out from the others due to the differences in the way she's written. And I think it might be that Jessica Liu wasn't satisfied with this, that Ming is more of a comedic relief character rather than one that gets the plot moving, and wanted to do something else. A thing I noticed is that unlike the rest of the cast, Jessica doesn't follow any of the others on social media last I checked, and doesn't seem to maintain the contact, so it might have been a personal thing also. And after Ming is written out, she's barely mentioned at all, like she never existed, and it's sad. And this generally just happens in Awkward, mainly with minor supporting characters. They just vanish and then new ones appear. Like, the token gay guy does a mitosis and morphs into two gay guys. And you can't really complain because these two rock and have more going for them besides being a couple of homos. They're also a couple of bros. In saying that, I now realize that's the same thing. The fifth season, like the fourth, has a lot going on, but it still follows the awkward formula that I explained earlier. And despite both being repetitive, season 4 never felt like it. In season 5, however, it just feels straight up ridiculous. Like, come on man, what are you doing? In previous seasons, it was repetitive, but it was done in a way that it felt like stupid teenagers in love. Something you can go, yeah, I was like that, so stupid. And it felt sincere. Halfway through season 5 though, it feels like the writers are desperately trying to meet a drama quota by any means necessary. It's funnier than it is heart-wrenching, but it's not like it makes you want to quit the show. Everything else is still good. Season 5 is about graduation and post-graduation, and it captures that bittersweet feeling of ending high school, or childhood if you will, and entering the ranks of adulthood, and the insecurities and relief that comes along with it. You really miss the halls of Jenna's high school, and their absence makes you feel nostalgic, like the characters feel, and it really makes me think about my old school. It was a bit of a shithole, but for so many years it was like my second home, whether I liked it or not. And even though it's been so long, I could map out the entire school if I wanted to, and I remember how everything looked. And although some of the worst parts of my youth were spent there, it still breaks my heart to think I'll never be able to go back, because I'm older, but also literally, because the school was demolished. And season 5 captures this feeling so well. I didn't watch season 5 back when it came out, it's only recently I finally got around to watching it. And besides the Jenna and Maddie drama feeling a bit forced, it surpassed every expectation I had going in. And most importantly, it ended the show so well, and most shows can't say this, especially ones that has run for as long as Awkward. It leaves you unsure of the characters' future, but ultimately you know it's going to be alright, because things have a way of working themselves out, even if the situation is a bit awkward. In terms of ranking the seasons, I'm giving season 1 first place because it just does Awkward so perfectly, and laid the groundwork for seasons to come, and contains some of the most memorable and iconic moments from the entire show. The first episode is probably one of, if not the best episode of the entire series, and the letter subplot is a funny subplot that leads to an even more shocking reveal. At second place I've gotta put season 4, because that was the one beside the first season that I was the most stoked for whenever MTV would do an Awkward marathon back in the day, before the dark times, before the ridiculousness. Third place is going to be a tie between season 2 and 3, because I really feel the same about them both. They just continue building on what the first season built, with some improvements here and there, but in terms of quality, they're equally good in my book. Season 5 gets the last at 4th, and it's not a bad season by any means, but it is the only season where there are parts that feel forced or are just badly handled. But as I said earlier, it's also the season that tackles pre- and post-graduation so well, and that feeling of nostalgia for a time that will never come back. And it ended the show perfectly in my opinion, so it's merely getting last because the rest of the show is as good as it is. and it was bound to stumble at one point or another. In an interview with Teen Vogue, Bo Merchov, the actor behind Maddie, talked about the possibility of a sixth season because of the ending's open-ended nature, and that if the fans were vocal enough, he believed there could be another season. This never came to fruition, and I'm kinda glad it didn't. The open-ended nature of the ending is what makes it so good, because neither you or the characters know what the future holds for them. But in that moment they're in at the end of the season is wonderful and cozy, and everything will be fine actually. And it sends this wonderful message that the future is scary and uncertain. But the moment you're in isn't, and is in your control, and that you should enjoy it while it lasts. I don't feel that knowing Tamara got arrested for tax fraud after season 5 adds much to the whole experience of Awkward. And ultimately, Awkward is a coming of age show and about life in high school. Even though half of season 5 is post-graduation, everything is still related to that period in their lives. If they did season 6, it would take place in college, like parts of season 5, and while that could be fun, I just don't think there's much more they can do or explore with these characters that wouldn't already have been done. And besides, they already did explore college in season 5 and what that did to the characters and their relationships. So I think it would just have like the same problem that season 5 had, where it would be way too repetitive and they wouldn't have much to go on. And that's the main problem with season 5. That the Awkward formula had been stretched out so much at that point of feeling old at times. And also, any good story knows when to end it, and Awkward nailed it. So while I would be excited if there were to be a new season or a show, it would be a bittersweet feeling, and I would be equally stoked if MTV put in an effort to promote Awkward to a new generation and do marathons again. It was years before I went back to Awkward, but in those years, I would occasionally just think about it and have a little chuckle and then move on. I guess I was a little scared that my fond memories of the show were purely nostalgic and related to a certain time in my life, but now I know they were well founded. And while I can't go back to those years, I can always reminisce or watch Awkward. Watching behind the scenes footage, it's clear that this was a show made by passionate people, and that is felt through the screen. And I think now, like their characters felt about high school, the cast all feel nostalgic for that time they were all together working on Awkward.